spring 1991. Business is booming for Levi Strauss & Company, one of the world's leading apparel manufacturers and one of its most trusted brands. With consumer demand soaring for both its Levi's and Dockers product lines, the company is turning to overseas contractors to help supply production. Inside the Levi organization, employees voiced concern.
They were concerned that our contractors might be working people excessive hours or in unsafe or unsanitary conditions, or perhaps using underage children to lower production costs. And so I said, let's put together a task force to look at it.
It was actually driven by employees in the company. It wasn't a leader-led program, and those employees really wanted to make a difference in ensuring that the way we engage with our supply base would set the company up for long-term success.
After months of intense meetings, they draft a landmark document, Levi Strauss & Company's Terms of Engagement. It is the first time in history a multinational corporation has written a contractor code of conduct. But one question remains: whether to adopt the code as company policy.
The group divided into two camps. The first camp said, absolutely we should do it, it's the right thing to do. With equal conviction and sincerity, the other group said, we can't go forward with this. If we do this and we're the only one who does it, we could be priced out of the market. We could lose sales.
Just as a decision was about to be reached, an American television network ran a news story alleging abusive conditions in factories in Saipan.
The Department of Labor charged that many Levi, Polo, and Van Heusen clothes were made by workers who were forced to sleep and eat in guarded compounds.
The report named not only Levi's, but other major brands that were contracting there.
We are terminating our relationship with them.
It sent shockwaves through the company, and suddenly there was a very dramatic and real example of what kind of harm could come to the brand and to the company's reputation.
I pushed the group to come to a decision, but unfortunately they were divided about equally. And so I made the decision that we should go forward. I based the decision on the fact that as I look back in history, whenever we've had to face tough choices, the leaders of the company have always said we ought to do the right thing, even if it wasn't popular, even if it was against our commercial best interest at the time.
People were laughing at us. Our industry competitors said, Levi's, you're crazy for doing this. And I think over the years we've demonstrated that we have the integrity to continually improve this. It's a commitment, it's a passion for making sure that this company is not only standing behind our products, we're standing behind the people who are making our products.
As 1992 unfolded, Levi Strauss & Company embarked on its groundbreaking mission to implement its global code of conduct. Fair labor practices and worker health and safety were now a central focus as the company selected its business partners around the world. But many still wondered if such constraints would tie the company's hands in a time of increasing competition. What would the consequence be of putting values ahead of the bottom line?
Well, first of all, the sky didn't fall. Most contractors continued to want to work with us. The second thing that happened was we didn't find ourselves at a competitive disadvantage.
Well, it was truly catalytic. Levi's Terms of Engagement was the code of conduct that launched now probably thousands of other codes of conduct. It was a step that not only changed the way this company addressed its global supply chain and the working conditions there, but now ultimately really almost every company in every industry that operates a supply chain globally, and that really includes almost every company in the world.
During the 1990s, the global business climate underwent rapid and dramatic change. With instantaneous communication, the lifting of trade barriers, and global expansion of business investment, events in distant lands were suddenly close by. Markets and labor forces, communities and cultures were interconnected as never before.
Globalization presents a much more multidimensional test in terms of how companies operate. So it's a little bit like a kaleidoscope where companies have to think about not only their employees and their consumers, but also civil society, NGOs, trade unions, governmental organizations, international organizations that play a very substantial role in defining just what the expectations are for a company. And without attending to that more multidimensional nature of the world in which we're living, company won't succeed.
The emerging global marketplace sparked unprecedented competition for apparel leaders like Levi Strauss & Company. As part of its strategy to remain competitive, the company underwent enormous transformation, closing 95% of its owned and operated plants in favor of contract production. Even so, within a few short years, Levi's record profits headed into steep decline, and the company many viewed as rock solid slid into a downturn.
The marketplace has changed dramatically, and what Levi's has been historically, we may have to reinvent as we go forward, and what Dockers has been before, we may have to reinvent, and there may be other brands that we create in the process.
When Phil Marino took over as CEO in the late 1990s, the company was going through some challenging times, and I think there was some question about how committed the company would remain to our terms of engagement. And I think Phil put those questions to rest almost immediately by issuing a very direct email to all employees that said he remained committed to the terms of engagement, and under his leadership that wasn't going to change here.
The Chicago School of Economics says the business of business is about business. I don't think so. I think the business of business is not only creating shareholder value, but doing the right thing for your community and the societies that you do business with, and also making sure you do the right things for the people that work for you.
Social responsibility, workers' rights, the environment, these are hot topics for people, and I think they demand businesses take account of them properly. So I think when we're thinking about the quality of our brands and brand equity, then I think terms of engagement absolutely comes into play. Because how can we try and build positive brand equity and yet not have a good reputation in terms of social responsibility, workers' rights, etc.?
It's very, very important. When you buy a pair of Levi's, you can be confident and comfortable with how it was made, who made it, and the conditions it was made in. And that's the legacy that we have to continue as managers and leaders and employees of Levi Strauss & Company in managing the Levi's brand as we go forward.
Contracting responsibly around the globe proved to be a complex task. As Levi Strauss & Company worked to implement its terms of engagement over the next 14 years, the company fine-tuned its methods and broadened its mission.
The world has really changed, and as that's changed, we've learned a tremendous amount. And I would say we've changed both what we do and how we do it. We've learned that it isn't just about what's happening on the factory floor, that it's also about what's happening in the community with the workers and their families, and it's also about what's happening at the national and international policy levels with trade legislation and trade agreements. So we work with community affairs at the community level. We work with government affairs at the policy level. So it's all very intertwined and very integrated in terms of our approach to creating change in factories.
Along with considerable success, the Levi program has faced some unexpected challenges, prompting the team to reevaluate its methods.
One of the things we realized was that we were not going in depth enough with talking to workers. When a monitor's in a factory, they will call workers into a room and sit and ask them a bunch of questions. It's more like a interrogation or a police interview than anything else. Obviously, in a situation like that, workers are not going to feel very comfortable sharing things with you, And what we've found in some cases is workers are beginning to be coached by management on what to say. So we decided to do something very different, which was for our people who go into factories to behave more like cultural anthropologists.
You talk to workers in their natural setting, at the bus stop where they're waiting for the bus, at the cafe where they're having coffee, just as they're walking down the street where they're comfortable. They tell you what it's like working in the factory, because there is no hidden agenda, there is no expectation. It's just a conversation with someone. And you'd be surprised how much you learn about that individual, their work life, and their expectations. That information has helped us tremendously make changes in the contractor's mindset, the contractor's behavior, and we've actually been able to foment ideas in what to make a better working relationship between the contractor and his employees, because they never hear the unvarnished truth.
As Levi Strauss & Company continues to enter new markets in the new millennium, its burgeoning supply base has grown to more than 500 contractors in 50 countries around the world. To monitor working conditions and maintain environmental standards throughout this vast supply chain, the company now employs 20 full-time TOE assessors who must undergo rigorous training, including role-playing on the factory floor. To enhance their effectiveness, Levi's has produced a detailed TOE guidebook that interprets its standards at the factory level. While other companies offer some guidance, the Levi guidebook is one of a kind, laying out specific actions to be taken to promote compliance.
15 years ago, our approach was to tell our suppliers, here's our terms of engagement. If you don't meet them, we're out of here. We're going to exit our business with you. And over time, that approach has evolved. It's evolved because we've learned more in working with suppliers, and it's also evolved because the activist groups who used to say, Levi's, you got to get out of that supplier if you're not meeting your standards, have come around to a different point of view as well.
Initially, yes, there was a kind of campaign approach that said just pull out. But certainly over the last number of years, the slogan is don't cut and run, so that you need to be part of the solution. As a brand, you need to work with suppliers and you need to make sure that there's a resolution.
The people who are working in these factories are depending upon that contractor, our production, to earn a living. And just recklessly walking away because someone has made a mistake is going to affect people's lives. It's going to affect the economy of that community. We're not in business to do that. Justice says we have to give people a chance to succeed.
I think back to one of the first situations that we encountered 15 years ago when we rolled out these guidelines in the early 90s. We went to some contractors in Bangladesh and found underage workers. And we ended up working with the contractors to make sure that the people who were underage, who should have been going to school, were actually sent to school. The contractors supported their going to school with stipends and also guaranteed that when those individuals reached the legal working age, they would be offered their jobs back.
Levi's innovative solution for dealing with underage workers became a model program, replicated across the industry and later funded by the United Nations and the government of Bangladesh.